Hi, I'm Sloan Brown, and I'm here with Terry Hickey, who is the president and CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters of the Greater Chesapeake.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
You know, Big Brothers Big Sisters is an organization I think a lot of us have known about. I don't even remember for how long.
Right.
So clue me in.
Right,
how long?
Right. Well, you've known about it for a long time.
Yeah.
We started nationally in 1901, and we've been in Baltimore since 1952. And fascinating history, but we've been serving kids in and around Central Maryland, Baltimore City for over 60 years.
Now, it started just as Big Brothers.
Yeah, it started as Jewish Big Brothers. It was run in partnership with the Jewish community. They were serving boys back in the 50s. And a group of women from the Zion Baptist Church decided there needed to be an organization for girls. And back then it was very easy to get involved in the national network. And so they created a Big Sisters group. And in the 1960s, they merged and became what was then eventually known as Big Brothers Big Sisters of Central Maryland.
And speaking of merging, the organization, and particularly the one here, has a history of kind of merging. I mean, tell me a little bit about how it's kind of grown and morphed over the years.
Yeah, it's been territorial creep. So you know how hard it is to keep a nonprofit in business these days, and it's all about efficiency and serving, you know, more and more kids. So we eventually merged with the Eastern Shore. So we mentor children all over the shore, which if you look at a map, is really big. There's a lot of room. So we start at Kent County and work our way all the way down to the lower shore. We also mentor children all through Southern Maryland, which is probably an area a lot of people don't know as much about. Great area, lots of dedication to this. Calvert, St. Mary, and Charles counties. And then all of Central Maryland. All we don't serve is far west, past Frederick, and the DC suburbs.
Do you find then, with having kind of spread out to these various areas, do you find that there are kind of different issues that you have to some of the Big Brothers Big Sisters have to deal with the kids that they're mentoring in some different parts of the state, particularly, say, those of us, and I'll speak for myself,
Sure,
who lives more in the Baltimore area.
Right.
There are possibly things I'm not thinking of that are really important for kids in Southern Maryland or the
Right.
Eastern Shore.
Right. So mentoring's mentoring, and the way we do mentoring, which we can get into a little bit, is very specific. We've been doing it this way for a long time, so the model's the same. Kids are generally, young people are lots of ways the same. Mm-hmm. You can take a young person off to the side in Baltimore City or a young boy in Salisbury and talk about what they want to do, and there's a lot to the environment that may have influenced them, but in the end, you see two kids playing, throwing a ball, they're kids. The difference, I think, is a lot about perception and what is a Baltimore City youth. And our biggest challenge is overcoming perception. And in places like the Eastern Shore, Southern Maryland, parts of some of the counties, we can just get closer to people. And I think our ability to convince people to take a leap of faith and commit at least a year of their life, 4 to 6 hours a week mentoring a child, is a little bit easier. In the city, there's a lot of messages, there's a lot of really great groups out there. There's 1,000 ways you can help children.
Yeah.
So what do you pick? But I'm going to go on a limb and say I honestly believe the key to saving the city, changing the way the way kids lot in life, is going to be through mentoring, connected to a lot of other things. But I really think it's got to start with mentoring, no matter where you are.
And I want to get into that in just a minute, but you had mentioned that there's a very kind of specific kind of mentoring program or platform,
Right.
so tell me a little bit more about that.
Right. So Big Brothers has been doing it the same way since 1901. It's one-to-one. So you've got Sloan, the big sister, you've got a little sister. You apply, you're screened, you're interviewed. We do kind of this. We get a sense of what you're all about, where do you live, what do you want to get out of it? What are your perceptions of young people? We have people walking in that say, I want to mentor somebody this age, that's left-handed, likes baseball, eats tacos, and we work with that. But in the end,
you really do, or do you try to do a little reality check?
We try. If you walk in and say, listen, I'm a vegan, I want a 16-year-old boy that doesn't like video games and wants to be a vegan, we're going to tell you it might be a wait. But
right.
So we try to educate you on expectations.
Right.
But it's involved in the sense that you're going to be matched with one child. And to some people that seems old school. Why not work with a group? Because the bonding and trusting relationship that builds over time, that's when the needle starts to move. Otherwise, it tends to be a feel-good experience, but when it breaks up, you haven't left lasting change. So safety's huge. When you're a big, which is our word for mentor. So if you're big, you're in the community with your little. So you can pick them up at home, take them to an Orioles game, go get an ice cream cone, hang out at the park, drop them off at home at the end of the day. You can visit them at school. You can interact with their family. You can have the child over with permission and proper guidance at your house for dinner. So safety is the #1 issue for us right from the get-go. Then it's compatibility. And then we do these amazing matches where we go to the child's house where they live, and the big comes with us. Yeah. And after all this screening,
first? Oh, this is the first time. Okay.
First.
Okay.
So the mom, dad, everybody signed off. Everybody's good. We introduce them at the child's home.
Yeah.
And that starts the match. And these meetings are amazing. We had an 8-year-old boy who had this big linebacker-looking guy, this wonderful man who was going to be his big brother. And Mom had prepped him a bit, but he wanted to know where his big brother was going to stay, because if he's a big brother, he must be moving in. So, and this young man, this boy had said, I don't have a single male role model in my life. That's what got his mom to call us. So it's that process. And then the real secret sauce is, once you're matched, you have a 24/7 concierge in Big Brothers Big Sisters. You've got somebody assigned to you who, small caseloads, we have match support, and their job is to check in with you.
Support staff you're talking about, okay.
They check in with you. They give you, somebody to call if things aren't going right. We get a lot of those 2 weeks in, my little brother, I don't think he likes me. Or he's not open. It's day 1 and he hasn't opened up to me. What's going on?
Yeah.
And so they're there to train and handhold and keep the matches going, monitor safety, and that's why our matches average over 2 years. So imagine an adult in a life of a child for 2 years or more focused on the well-being of that young person. It's pretty magical.
As you're talking about this, I would imagine that one of the I don't know, issues that you guys deal with is, when it comes to unrealistic expectations, there's probably more on the side of the adults, the bigs, than there are with the kids. Right?
Right.
And adults often expect to come in and kind of be seen automatically as kind of, wonderful and, the fairy godmother, fairy godfather, whatever. And then when the child doesn't immediately respond, because I would imagine a lot of these kids have trust issues.
Right.
And so you really have to work, you guys have to play shrink a bit with a lot of your volunteers.
Right. Yeah, I can sum up the child's expectations pretty quickly. Show up, tell me the truth, and care about me. And you'd be amazed. They don't think they're going to come back. They don't think they're going to be honest with them. And they don't think they care. What's so amazing about this, though, is that it's really hard to look at an adult that's come and seen you once a week for the first couple of months and just spent time with you. It's almost impossible for a child to say, you're just here because you're volunteering with your company or you're made to do it. Now, the adults, different story. The expectations are all over the place. And you kind of come at it from two sides, right? You've got those that come in very, very confident that I have everything. I am going to impart all my wisdom on this child. He will be a mini-me, and we're going to go from there. And what do you mean you don't like that? Or what do you mean you don't want to go out for sushi? And we have to deal with that. And the other is the person who's completely paranoid. They're going to hate me. They're going to think my job's boring. I don't want to say anything to offend them. And then running beneath all of this is this really serious undertone. And you had mentioned it about trust issues. We have so much information these days from scientific studies about trauma. Like I have a 4.5-year-old, and when he gets a boo-boo, that 2 minutes of trauma on my child's face ruins me. Imagine if a child grows up for the first 12 years of their life with their fight or flight syndrome turned on all the time. All the time. There's a gunshot in the alley. There's a dog barking right in front. You don't know if it's safe or not. You're outside. You can't find your mom. There's a million things. You're surrounded oftentimes by frustrated energy. So you're in fight or flight mode all the time. So imagine that boo-boo moment spread out over 12 years. Who would you trust?
Right, exactly. Exactly.
There are so many good programs in Baltimore City and around the state that are site-based, where you go and you do things and you learn things. Big Brothers Big Sisters doesn't want to interfere with any of that. As a matter of fact, we'd love to get more adults connected to other programs by being a mentor, but at the end of the day, the reason I say mentoring is going to change our city, change our state, change the way we think about young people is you've got one nonprofit organization embodied in you, focused on one child, and be it getting them to try that after-school program, being there their first day of Little League when they're terrified to put themselves out there, or better yet, you know, they're at home, they get a phone call from a kid they haven't seen in a long time that says, you got to do me a favor. I just want you to hold this and wait for me in that alley. You owe me. You know, we're boys. We grew up together.
Right.
Who do they call? Who do they call?
Right.
You know, most of our kids will tell us they do not have, particularly men, male boys, a male role model that they can call in that kind of life-changing experience that they trust.
Well, that leads me to talking about some major changes that you guys experienced this spring.
Right. I've been kind of thinking of words for this, you know, profound, unprecedented, you know, at this point, I think everybody knows April was, you know, a pretty rough patch for us in Baltimore. I don't believe for a second that it changed the paradigm of anything. I think it just made people aware.
Illuminated. Exactly.
That's a great word. It illuminated. Shocked, spurred into action. You know, we're such a wonderful planet of people that react to things, but something was so interesting about this. We didn't want to put out the call after the unrest about mentors. We didn't want to look like we were trying to capitalize on the situation. But our staff wanted to be out there. We have a lot of young staff. They put on their Big Brother shirts and they went out to a lot of the sites and were helping clean, you know, and they brought cards. And if people approached them in droves. They were coming up saying, and you know what it was? You started the interview by talking about people know about us.
Yeah.
It's in their heads, but it's that affirmative action. It's a movement. It's what are they going to do? They came up and said, I've been thinking about this, and I'm just going to do it. Or we got all these calls. That application's been sitting on my desk. Can you get me an interview now? Like, can I come in now? And it was a sense of urgency, and it was a sense of volume. And then we said, okay, well, we're going to put this out there. So we started putting out the numbers. We had hundreds of kids on our wait list, which numbers about 1,000.
Yeah.
You know, over 600 or 700 just in Baltimore City. And they live so the kids that were in that school that didn't run out, the young people that were in the row houses that didn't come out, a lot of them were on our wait list. And the parents had been waiting months. And we had this challenge about being able to find people willing to commit quickly enough.
Well, I remember you telling me when I saw you at an event not long after that the number of phone calls and inquiries you had. So tell me that number in comparison to your history.
So the month of the riots to the end of June, which is the end of our year, we had almost 1,500 inquiries, which is an entire year's worth more rolled into really about 2 months. Of people coming to us on their own, companies calling us saying, you know, because we were thinking people are going to come back and say, I think we got to pull back for a bit. You know, our employees maybe don't know exactly what they want to do, but the response was, we don't want to do a one-day project. Mm-hmm. You know, what can we get involved in that we can see change, that we can get invested in, and we want to go to the neighborhoods. We want to work with older kids. No, nobody comes to us for that generally.
Right.
You know, can I mentor a teenager that lives in West Baltimore? And these aren't, you know, there's a danger to say, cynically, it's an eruption of emotion, everybody's reaching out. We are not the short play. You know, I am not so emotionally charged, I'm going to come in and go through a month-long process so I can spend the next couple years of my life developing a trusting bond with one young person and their family and ultimately their community.
Right.
So 1,500 inquiries. In the last month of the year, we made 70 matches. And I told you about the process. It's fairly involved. It's a challenge, but we can't do it. We're not going to sacrifice safety. Has there been good follow-up?
You know, again, I would imagine there are a lot of people impulsively calling, and then they don't really follow up. I mean, what's that? How's that been?
Our conversion rate generally from meeting you at Artscape and having you sign up, you know, on a clipboard to getting you matched is about 17%. Which, believe it or not, it's close to the national average because it is a commitment, and it just takes a while to get over that perception.
Now, what about since this spring?
Yeah, we're seeing over 30%. But that's the thing. It's the volume, but it's the urgency. You know, even before the riots, there had been a call for men because people may remember there'd been an uptick in violence. There was a lot going on in the Canton, Highlandtown area. We'd been seeing some real growing rifts between teenagers and community members. And so we had gone out and gotten some grant funding, and people said, well, why do you want to focus on Highlandtown? Why not go to some of these neighborhoods we're hearing about? Because that's where everybody lives. You've got desperately poor children, deserving families, and then we've got all of these folks that are being hired to work in companies. Some of our partners like Under Armour and others, that's where people are living. So you could go to the other side of Patterson Park where you play football on weekends, maybe hang out.
Right.
You can go north of the park and you can mentor a child. So we were seeing an uptick, and then the dam burst. And what's been so, I say, profound,
right,
they're talking about this around the country. And we've had a real challenge. Mentoring tends to be an enhancement. It's, let's add a mentoring component, or let's throw in mentoring. Now it's being treated, I think, with a sense of it's an essential tool to build community.
Yeah.
I mean, we're bringing people together, and we're doing it one match at a time.
I'm curious, we kind of talked a little bit about some people's misperceptions of what they are, adults expecting,
right,
when they come into the organization and stuff. So, and with everything that's happened in the last few months, have you found any of your previous kind of perceptions of what you do changed or altered? Is there anything that you've kind of had a revelation about?
Right. My team's going to laugh right now if they see this, that you're asking that question, because I've only been with Big Brothers Big Sisters for about 2.5 years. And when I came in, I did what a lot of people in the public say. It's, why one-to-one? Why this lengthy process? Why, let's create these groups where anybody who shows up works with these kids, you throw in some activities, you play some sports. That would be great. Like, I could do that. This looks hard, which all of our bigs tell us, by the way, we were wrong. It's not hard. It's the easiest thing ever in the world. But I started thinking maybe we've got to mess with this. Their funders say, be more innovative. They say, can't you be more like this? Well,
particularly in this day and time when you've got like technology, and so you've got all sorts of new ideas constantly coming in and changing. Right, that would be.
But it works. We vastly underestimate that one major metric, which is we can measure the trusting relationship between a youth and an adult. And that every single study will show you out there around mentoring that that's the gold standard, is trust and bonding. So I love your question, because where we're headed now, we don't want to be isolated. Big Brothers is not here to say, we do this one kind of mentoring, it's the only one.
Yeah.
But what we do has the most impact that we think we can get from a mentoring relationship. So we've been working with the city, we've been working with corporate partners and foundations to get involved in things like workforce. Imagine if all of our workforce programs had a partnership where you could have a mentor in the community helping that child be successful as they're trying to get a job. Imagine if every first-generation college student had a mentor that had been through that. Who do they call when they think, this is too hard, I want to drop out of college?
Right.
So
there isn't something like that in place? Other than,
there are a lot.
Than bigs and littles that have already been, but they were paired when the child was younger?
There's a lot of good mentoring programs out there, and a lot of them work in different separate niche areas. To take the way Big Brothers does it, that one-to-one supported community mentoring, and make it a tool in a bigger toolbox, so we can drive less young people dropping out of college. We've got a pilot now with Hopkins where children who are assault victims get matched to a big brother or sister by the emergency room folks. And we're testing a theory with Hopkins that we can reduce the incidence of once you're assaulted, the rates of you becoming a potential assaulter or assault victim climb exponentially. What if we could change that? And what if we could start with mentoring? We're looking at literacy. What if we could work with these wonderful groups in Baltimore focused on literacy rates? What if every mentor showed up to see their third grade little with a new book and, hey, let's read this together? So we can be an essential partner to work with groups. And I think that's the emphasis. If you like sports, join a sports organization and let's hook you up to mentor a child, and then go run with that girl. But help the whole club, help the whole center. But at the end of the day, give your little a ride home. So I think we can help drive volunteerism in schools. I think we can drive volunteerism for other groups, and we can take on the safety, training, and risk management, which is why a lot of folks, there really aren't many groups anymore in this country that let you spend time with a young person out in the community. I really think that's the secret. So yeah, I was tempted to mess with the formula. Now I just want to be a really, really good partner and let people know about it.
So where do you see, if you know your wish list, where would you like to see the organization in 5 years?
We have a wait list of almost 1,000 people. We're serving hundreds less children than we did back in the early 2000s when there was a lot of federal money. We're building back again with individual donations, corporate support, and local foundations and funders. It's the smart long-term thing, but it's been hard. We're a function of staffing. You know, we're there for our bigs and our littles and their families. So for us to grow, we have to grow our people. It's just the way it is. And so it's been slow and incremental. We need to tackle that wait list. We've brought on, there have been local, the United Way and Casey Foundation and others have stepped up. They've given us emergency funding post-riots, emergency funding for mentoring.
Wow.
For us to bring on temporary staff to continue to match at this lightning rate. So if we can cut that wait list in half in the next year, and if we can open up sort of the corporate eyes to what mentoring really means, whether you're going to fund us or not, what if every company can do what PayPal just did and call us and say, can you come up, talk to our 2,000 employees? We'd like to get 50 bigs. What if we could get every company, as one element of what they do, exposing their folks to that? If we can give a mentor to every child, both through Big Brothers and other mentoring programs, every child that needs one can have a mentor in their life, we will transform the city. We will transform those pockets of poverty in other parts of the state. We will. We just have to do it.
So anything that you feel that we haven't covered that you'd like to kind of mention?
Yeah, we got to get people to our website. So we, you know, for everybody who's watching this, and I know there's a lot of people that will, we need mentors. We particularly, I hate to say this, but we need men. Men get stuck in the pipeline. Men are really excited, but then they don't get their application in.
I won't take it personally.
No. We'd love you. Come on. We're placing women every day.
Yeah.
But we need men, and we need a continuous stream of mentors. For women, we need women who are interested in mentoring older girls. You know, 13 to 16-year-olds who are trying to focus on getting into college, maybe have had some trouble with the law, which is an increasing problem for teen girls. We need those folks. So we need mentors in general, but we need men to step up. Just fill out the darn paperwork, come on in. After matching, the national data shows men stay committed to their little longer than women do. So harder to get men to commit. When they do, they stick around. And so that's kind of the weird formula.
Yeah,
your guess is as good as mine, but biglittle.org. Simple. You go on there, there's this big volunteer button. You click on it, you fill out a couple fields, our people will get to you. If a man walks in our door tomorrow, does all their paperwork, wants to be matched, particularly in Baltimore City, we could have you a little brother in about a month. Never been able to do that or say that before. So
really? How long did it used to take?
It can take a couple of months depending on background
got
checks and where kids live and what neighborhood you want to go into.
Right.
But we're matching, you know, and if your company, if you just want to get a concentrated half-an-hour dose of how you can transform, particularly your millennial employee base through mentoring.
Sure.
Mentors make amazingly engaged employees. It really does work. So we just need to hear from you. We'll lay it out, but we need to get those phone calls. We need to have people stopping in. So biglittle.org.
Thanks, Terry.
Thank you.
Great chatting with you.